Hello, my name is Jim. I'm going to read a story to you today, and this is a story for kids and also for grown-ups and anyone. And this book is called The Call of the Swamp, and it's by David Kali and Marco Soma. And somebody mentioned to me earlier that this creature here has a name, and I wonder if you know what it is. And I think it starts with an A, but I'm not quite sure of the spelling. It might be an X. I'm very curious to know who knows it. The Call of the Swamp is translated by Laura Watkinson from Italian. And we're going to be changing the pronouns in this book from he and him to they and them. When their parents found them, they had no children, and they had given up hope that they would ever have any. The doctors had been clear. It's impossible, they said. You can't have children. So when the couple found a newborn at the edge of the swamp, it seemed like a gift from heaven, and they paid no attention to the fact that they had gills like a fish. They didn't know if they had been abandoned or if they had lost their parents, but it didn't matter because they had found a new mom and dad now. They called them Boris. Boris grew up. It didn't matter that their eyes were bigger than everyone else's. They played, ate, and laughed just like all children do. They learned how to ride a bike and how to climb trees, and then they went to school to learn lots of other useful things. And some useless things too. Years went by, and you could say that they were happy years, or at least they weren't unhappy. And then one day, quite unexpectedly, it happened. The wind was blowing and the air had a salty smell that Boris had forgotten, or maybe had never really known, a scent buried away in the depths of their memory, one they had smelled when they were small, the scent of the swamp. Boris found themselves wondering what their life would have been like if they had stayed in the swamp. Why did you take me home, Mom? Because we loved you, she replied. But why didn't you leave me where I was? Because you could have died, their dad said. So many questions whirled around inside their head. Were they really happy? Was the life they had the one they really wanted? Or was it what other people wanted for them? Boris could not sleep. They woke up in the dead of night, feeling like they were suffocating. And they were thirsty. Always thirsty. Early one morning, Boris left the house. They walked and walked. It was only when their feet felt wet that they knew they had arrived at the swamp. They had followed the scent. Boris realized that they had been living a life that didn't belong to them in a world that was not their own. Their world was the swamp. Their world, or their scent, was the scent of the swamp. They should have been living with other creatures who had gills like they did. Boris had never imagined that anyone else like them existed. But lots of creatures living in the swamp had gills and big eyes, just like they did. They found out that they liked the same things. Boris laughed with them like they had never laughed before. They thought they had found a new family, their real family. Their mom and dad hadn't forgotten them, though. They often went to the swamp and left messages for them hanging from the trees. The messages never said, "Please come home." They simply said, "If you're happy where you are, then we're happy too." How much are we really like those who look like us? It's hard to say. After a while, Boris started to notice differences between himself and the others who lived in the swamp. They didn't eat the same things as they did, and they talked in a different way. They laughed differently, too. Suddenly, they missed the smell of home. It wasn't any scent in particular. It was more like a kind of homesickness, a feeling that seemed to tickle and prickle inside their nose, a feeling that brought back happy memories. So Boris left their new family. Maybe, they thought, it's just me. Maybe I don't belong anywhere. Maybe that's why I don't have a family. With that thought, they sank into the swamp and walked along the bottom until they were lost. Down at the bottom of the swamp, Boris found lots of bottles. They looked empty at first, but no. Inside each one was something small and thin, a note. All of the notes said, "If you're happy where you are, then we're happy too." How much like us do those we love have to be? The question darted around inside Boris's head like a little fish. Their mom and dad had wanted them, even though they didn't have gills. It didn't matter that their kid didn't look like them. Maybe our family is simply the ones we love and the ones who love us back. Maybe, thinking about these questions, Boris left the swamp. They paused for a moment to breathe in the swampy scent once more, and then they began to walk towards town. And that's the end of the story. Thanks.